Welcome back to the Future Archive. Today, we examine archived broadcasts from June 24, 2026, a day that saw hospitals outsmart cyberattacks with pen and paper, a tech giant pause its own surveillance, Europe's deadly heatwave adaptations, the rise of sweat scoring, and a rare congressional check on war powers. Each reveals the tensions of an era caught between innovation and its consequences. The first story. UK hospitals defeat AI ransomware by reverting to pen and paper. On June 24, 2026, over 100 hospitals across the UK's National Health Service (NHS) switched to handwritten patient records to counter a sophisticated AI-driven ransomware attack. The cyberattack, later attributed to a state-backed group, encrypted digital systems and demanded cryptocurrency payments. With critical care at risk, hospital staff retrieved dusty filing cabinets and notepads, manually recording patient data for 72 hours until systems were restored. The move was both a tactical success and a stark reminder of infrastructure vulnerability. No lives were lost, but the incident exposed the fragility of digitized healthcare and sparked debates about analog backups. This moment crystallized 2026's paradox: a society so advanced it could be paralyzed by its own technology, and so resourceful it could retreat to 19th-century solutions. By 2050, this event is taught in cybersecurity courses as the day humanity briefly outsmarted its machines. The irony, of course, is that the NHS had spent decades digitizing records to reduce errors, only to find that the most error-proof system was the one they'd abandoned. Mistakes were made, as they often are, in assuming progress is linear. The most secure system in 2026 turned out to be the one without a password. The second story. Meta halts employee surveillance for AI training after internal backlash. Meta, the social media conglomerate, temporarily suspended its practice of monitoring employees' keystrokes, screen activity, and internal communications to train AI models. The program, intended to improve workplace productivity tools, was leaked by an anonymous engineer in June 2026. Employees expressed outrage at the invasiveness, noting the hypocrisy of a company that publicly championed privacy while secretly harvesting its own workforce's data. Meta defended the practice as standard industry procedure, but paused it pending a review. The incident fueled public skepticism about corporate data ethics. This episode was a textbook example of humanity's favorite strategy: applying new technology to old problems without considering the human cost. By 2050, such surveillance is ubiquitous, though now it's the AI doing the monitoring and the humans who notice. The backlash in 2026 was one of the first cracks in the facade of unchecked corporate data collection. Safety committees were formed in response, though as history shows, their primary function was to provide the illusion of oversight. The company that taught the world to share finally learned some things shouldn't be. The third story. Drowning deaths surge in France as Europe struggles with deadly heatwave. As a severe heatwave gripped Europe in June 2026, France reported a 40% increase in drowning deaths compared to the previous year. With temperatures exceeding 45 degrees Celsius, 113 degrees Fahrenheit in some regions, desperate citizens sought relief in rivers, lakes, and quarries, many of which had hidden currents or sudden drop-offs. Emergency services were overwhelmed, and public health officials warned against the dangers of swimming in unsupervised areas. The tragedy highlighted the lack of preparedness for extreme weather, as climate adaptation measures lagged behind the accelerating reality of global warming. This was climate change's cruelest irony. Water, the very thing people turn to for survival, became a death trap. By 2050, such heat waves are routine, and drowning during them is a known risk, though now at least the warnings are better funded. The 2026 heat wave also marked the beginning of the Great Subsidization, as governments scrambled to fund public cooling centers and lifeguard training. Evidence later suggested an intern at the French Meteorological Office had underplayed the heat wave's severity in early reports. In 2026, the only thing hotter than the weather was the panic. The fourth story. Wearable tech introduces sweat scores to optimize hydration. In June 2026, tech companies began marketing wearable devices capable of analyzing users' sweat to determine electrolyte levels, assigning a sweat score to indicate hydration status. Brands like HydroSense and Electrolyte IQ promised to revolutionize athletic performance and general health by providing real-time data. Critics, however, dismissed the trend as another example of tech over-engineering a basic biological function. Despite the skepticism, the devices sold briskly, tapping into the cultural obsession with self-optimization and gamified health metrics. The rise of sweat scores was a perfect snapshot of 2026's relationship with technology, a solution in search of a problem. By 2050, such metrics are standard in workplace wellness programs, though their actual utility remains debated. The trend also foreshadowed the subscription wars, as companies soon began charging monthly fees for premium hydration insights. Humanity, it seems, will always find a way to monetize its own bodily functions. Turns out, the only thing humans love more than data is data about themselves. The fifth story. Congress reasserts war powers authority in rebuke to presidential overreach. On June 24, 2026, the U.S. Congress passed a bipartisan resolution invoking the War Powers Act to limit President Trump's military actions against Iran. The measure, the first of its kind in decades, required the administration to withdraw troops from unauthorized hostilities within 30 days unless Congress approved further action. The resolution marked a rare moment of institutional pushback against executive overreach, though its practical impact was limited, as the White House argued the military actions fell under existing authorizations. The vote was as much symbolic as it was substantive. This was a historical footnote with future implications. By 2050, historians debate whether this was the last gasp of congressional authority or the first step toward its revival. The irony is that the resolution was passed too late to prevent the escalation it sought to curb, a classic case of closing the barn door after the horse had already started a geopolitical incident. It also underscored how even the most serious constitutional checks could be reduced to political theater. The great spreadsheet crisis of congressional record-keeping meant the resolution's full text was temporarily lost in a server migration. Democracy moved at its usual pace, just behind the emergency. These stories from June 24, 2026, reveal a world grappling with the consequences of its own ingenuity, whether in cybersecurity, surveillance, climate, health tech, or governance. Each is a reminder that progress is not a straight line, but a series of zigzags, detours, and occasional U-turns. This has been the Future Archive. The past, as always, is not going anywhere.